Israeli anti-war protests. Police violence at Habima Square. Based on reporting by Ido Elam, plus 972 Magazine, April 1st, 2026. On March 28, 2026, over 1,000 people gathered in Habima Square in Tel Aviv to protest Israel's war with Iran. They came to stand together. They came in peace, and they were met with a level of police violence that had nothing to do with public safety and everything to do with punishment. This is the story as told by the article's author, Ido Elam, a conscientious objector, political activist with the Hadash Party, and secretary of the Young Communist League in Tel Aviv. He was there. He was one of the people dragged across the pavement, and what he describes isn't crowd control, it's a crackdown. A month earlier, these protests barely existed. Ido Elam writes that what began as a demonstration of barely 20 people had steadily grown. By the 28th, over 1,000 demonstrators had shown up, joined by parts of the more centrist anti-government protest movement. Parallel rallies were being held in dozens of locations across the country. From the very beginning, Elam and other left activists protested because the consequences of this war were obvious. In his words, it threatened to ignite a regional conflict that would claim countless civilian lives across the Middle East. This wasn't radical thinking. This was common sense. And more Israelis were starting to agree. And that, apparently, is what made the police nervous. As the protests grew into the hundreds over the previous 2 weeks, the heavy police presence had remained, but the aggressive dispersals had eased. The demonstrations continued without major incident. People showed up, they chanted, they went home. No violence, no provocation, just citizens exercising a basic right. But on March 28th, that changed. Elam writes that from the moment they arrived, it was clear the police had other intentions. Hundreds of militarized border police and regular officers encircled the square, facing the demonstrators, not monitoring, not standing by, facing them, ready. Within minutes of the first chants through the megaphone, they began throwing people to the ground. Arrests followed almost immediately. Think about what that means. 1,000 people show up to peacefully oppose a war. They hold signs, they chant, and within minutes, militarized police are putting people on the ground. These protesters didn't throw anything. They didn't break anything. They didn't charge any line. They showed up, and that was enough. Elam describes sitting down on the ground with several friends, a deliberate act of non-violent resistance to the police push to clear the area. That's it, sitting down. And what did it provoke? 4 border police officers grabbed him by his arms and legs and dragged him across the pavement. One shouted, "Just get up already," while another forced him onto his stomach and a third yanked him aside. Elam writes that he could see the hatred and anger in their eyes, and he makes a critical observation. Their violence felt less like an attempt to disperse a protest than an effort to create chaos and punish those who refused to leave. That's the key line. Read it again. This wasn't dispersal. This was punishment. Now, Israel police claimed the demonstration was prohibited under emergency regulations and that officers acted in response to a, quote, real risk to human life due to the potential for missile sirens. Elam calls this blatantly false. Habima Square sits directly above one of Tel Aviv's largest public bomb shelters, a shelter that serves thousands of residents and could easily accommodate all of the demonstrators within minutes. The real problem wasn't missiles. The real problem was the message. When police can't provoke a crowd into violence, they have 2 choices. They can stand down and let people exercise their rights, or they can become the violence themselves. On March 28th in Habima Square, the Israeli police made their choice. And it wasn't just Elam. Among those arrested was his friend Itamar Greenberg, a conscientious objector who had already been arrested at the very first anti-war protest weeks earlier. According to Elam, Greenberg was subjected to an unlawful strip search during that first arrest. And here he was again, back in the square, back in handcuffs for the crime of saying no to war. Despite all of this, despite the riot gear, the dragging, the arrests, something remarkable happened. Elam describes a palpable sense of solidarity in the square that night. Even among people who didn't agree on much, at that moment, they all stood together against a common adversary. And he's not talking about Iran. He's talking about their own police. That's what happens when a government sends militarized forces against its own citizens for the act of peaceful protest. You don't break people's will. You unify it.
To serve in the Israeli army.
Because there's a genocide and you don't enlist into an army that's committing a genocide.
In one sentence, why should people refuse to serve in the Israeli army?
The IDF is continuing to behave the same way it's behaved since Israel's founding, which is furthering horrible death and violence and a circle of blood for everyone.
Because the Jewish state that trying to present me wanna exterminate the people of Gaza. And we can't be silent. Never again is now for everyone.
Because it is committing genocide and it's not helping not Jews and not Palestinians. We are all in danger because of the Israeli army.
שום פעילות, הפגנה, כתבה, לא משיגה את הכאב שגורם רצח העם בעזה. הצבא של המדינה אליה נולדתי, על כל חייליו מגנרל לטוראי, הוא האחראי הראשי לזוועות הללו. כל חייל, מהטייס, ללוחם, לטכנאי, למדריך, לשוטר, למסביר ולפקיד, אחראי לפשע הזה. כולנו שותפים מרצון ומהכרח לאבדון המתרחש במרחק כמה שעות בודדות של נסיעה מביתנו. הפך צה"ל לא רק לצבא שלא ראוי לשרת בו, אלא לאויב שעלינו להתנגד אליו.